Today is a day I've been waiting for a long time. Actually, in the Overcome Out Loud studio with us today is the Collin Henderson. Colin is a lot of things. He is the founder of Master Your Mindset. He is a Lululemon ambassador. He is a mental conditioning performance coach and trainer. He is a father of 5 amazing kids, 3 girls, 1 boy. He is the husband to his lovely wife, Kendra. But most importantly, he is a really very good friend of mine. And actually, for those who have been around me for the last few years and noticed my commitment to mental performance, Colin is actually my personal mental conditioning coach, trainer, and mentor. Been working with Colin for only about 6 months, but feels like about 6 years, and has really helped me transform the things that I do and how I do them. And welcome to Overcome Out Loud, man.
Charlie, what an honor, man. I'm so proud of you, so inspired. I learned from you. I mean, I'm a student, so I love our time together. We're in your office on the whiteboard, getting after it, getting clarity. So, Heather, you're awesome too, by the way. So happy to be here, man.
Yeah, this is a bit of we're gonna get a double dose today because, first of all, Colin has his own overcome story, and it's part of what has driven him to the area of social emotional learning, mental conditioning, recognizing the power of our minds and how it can serve us or it can work against us. And so he's got his own overcome story, which we're going to get into, and it's a powerful story. And he's also a subject matter expert. So for those of us that have had to face adversity, challenge, and change in our lives, Colin is a thought leader. He's out on the front lines training companies and individuals and sales teams and professionals and church groups on how to master their mindset. And so, how you got into this space is not coincidental. I mean, you had your own challenges. So can you take us back, Colin, in your own personal life and kind of where you come from? And I know you were a 2-sport athlete at Washington State University. We got out with the great Ryan Leaf yesterday.
We did.
Cougs.
Ryan hits the ball really far.
Ryan Leaf can put a golf ball into outer space.
Yes.
Yeah. When you see a 6'7" guy rip a golf club through a swing like he does, it's something to watch. And so you were a 2-sport athlete. Tell us a little bit about your origin story, where you came from, and how you got to Washington State, and then how you got into this mental conditioning space.
Charlie, that's a great question. It's a good place to start. I love telling that origin story is a powerful thing if you want to mentor, lead people, to give them that background. But for me, I grew up an athlete, loved playing everything, was fast, could catch, could throw, could hit, just came natural, loved it. And I think as you get older, when you get in high school, college, you notice that really kind of talent is kind of similar. But really what separates people is how hard they work, but also this like self-belief. And it's interesting, you'd see some performers could do it in practice, not in games. Some performers could do it sometimes in games, not all the time. And they were just consistent all the time. And I was just so fascinated. And I remember I really started to notice some of this like anxiety and just was not present, wasn't focused, even though I probably didn't have those words to describe it back then. Just playing Stanford in baseball. Like, I'm like, why do I have this like out of body anxiety experience in this game right now? Playing at Washington State in football. I trained so hard physically in the weight room and catching footballs. Our first game against Idaho, my 3rd year, I had a visceral panic attack like 2 hours before the game. And looking back, now I train my body, I didn't train my mind. And part of my origin story is I had a slight stutter kind of starting in like 6th grade. And like a lot of us, with parenting, I had amazing parents, but my dad was like really intense. He loved to win. So he was just very aggressive verbally, like, didn't do something right. So I just this would manifest in this fear of failure and attaching self-worth to an outcome. If I perform well, I'm worthy. If I fail, I'm worthless. And that created this fear of speaking in public. I changed schools in 6th grade. I had to read out loud. I got stuck on a word. And that warm blanket of shame, that fear, anxiety came over me. I couldn't say it. People were laughing. And so my brain triggered, don't stutter again. Don't mess up. And we know #TBT, not Throwback Thursday. Thoughts become things. What you avoid, you attract. Energy flows where focus goes. By avoiding stuttering, I would do that more. So just like self-worth tied to speaking, self-worth tied to how well I did as an athlete, it's exhausting. Absolutely exhausting. And then after graduate school at Washington State, I was in sales, selling to hospitals and that type of people. I changed companies in 2014 because the company I was with prior to that, they changed how they were selling us, how they were paying us verbal tests over the phone. So part of our compensation plan, not only sales group, but like you had to answer these questions on the phone. And someone who stutters in formal environments when the pressure's on, that was like the worst thing you can do. So self-worth dropped, fear, anxiety just through the roof. But I changed companies, and thank goodness in that moment I had a sales trainer that was a mindset coach. He was like the number one sales professional, like every year, killed it, crushed it on stage. And I had like a 3-month window when he was a sales trainer. And I was one of like 3 people that he trained. Like, come on, what are the odds? So let's give a shout out. Shout out to Frankie Pretzel. What's up, Frankie? But Frankie, we're in his car, and he's just talking about the power of thought, the power of the mind. It's not really sales tactics. He said sales psychology beats sales strategy. Colin, here's a list of 30 books on the power of the mind, the power of self-talk, mindfulness, how to visualize, the power of self-image. He gave me a list of 30 books on mindset, not business. So he just gave me a roadmap, and I'd never heard of this stuff before. He said, whatever the brain can conceive and believe it can achieve. I'm like, what language are you speaking? Why have I never been exposed to this? Because schools teach us what to think. They don't teach us how to think.
Yeah, I think that's it's so important. And you and I both live in the world of mental conditioning now, and of how thoughts shape things, and what we think of ourselves matters. And we've developed kind of this architecture around our beliefs and our behaviors, and how those two dials, when they act as a magnet. When they're in alignment, they're really powerful either way. And it's interesting to me how a lot of people get attached to outcomes, and we identify you'll be special if you get. Let's just take in high school. If you get an acknowledgement or an award, or you become all league or on all conference, then your athleticism will be worthy of acknowledgement. And but we don't control the 15 coaches that are out there making these acknowledgments of who we're going to be. And so what we really control is what we do. But you had this belief, that was attached to things. And how did you start to change that? And I love that you talked, it was exhausting. I think a lot of people, maybe they call it performance anxiety. I've heard that term a lot in athletics, which is that fear of failure, that worthiness attached to results, and trying to get people to make a shift to attach their worth to what they do, not what they get, it's a big shift. How would you help people make that shift if somebody is kind of in that space today of feeling, and you described it so perfectly, it's exhausting?
Yeah. Let me just finish the story, then I'll get into that. So I get a hold of these resources I now call the Jedi Scrolls, to think like a Jedi. But anyway, I just took this stuff and I had just so much clarity. I think confidence is clarity. I had so much clarity on like what I should be doing with my mind. So I set sales records, just killed it, destroyed it, was healthier, happier, better husband, better father. And I just became so obsessed with giving these tools to more people. And then after 1 year, I got promoted to a national sales trainer. So I was going around the country training people on the power of the mind to change their life and business. So what I've learned through that process, to answer this other question, is I teach any performer I work with this, whether you're a pro athlete, if you're a kid, 6, 7 years old, I teach them that you aren't defined by this. What you do doesn't define who you are. Who you are is more important. We're not human doings, we're human beings. So getting your self-worth to, let's just pick some key pillars of your values. For me, my 3 I am statements is I am authentic, I am present, I am courageous. So let's look at a different set of what we're going to measure and evaluate that are in your control. We can't control what people think and outcomes. We can control how we show up. And I'm such an advocate on personal development. So we can train our body, craft our mind. How much are you time spent on your body? How much time on your craft? Most business executives are all craft, their product, service, knowledge. We're not training our mind. So books, audiobooks, podcasts, how to visualize, mindfulness, self-talk, process over outcome, process goals, training courage, fear management. But I'm an advocate of coaching, because a coach changed my life. So you look at all these pro athletes, man, they have coaches on how to eat, how to recover and sleep, how to lift, how to throw, how to catch, how to block, how to So we think we can go throughout our life doing it by ourselves. And coaching isn't just I have all the answers. It's I'm going to roll with you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ride with you. Let's go. You got your things you're working on. I'll give you some things to work on, tweak, and perfect. I'll give you some ideas. But I think what the best coaches do is they give you perspective. And if we can change our perspective, there are two mother of all mental skills, and that is perspective and self-awareness. So I think if there's one pull through to answer your question is you're more than one thing. You're not just an executive. You're not just an athlete. You're not just a teacher. You're not just a mom who has a great role staying at home with the kids. Like, you're more than one thing. So figure out what lights you up, what gives you energy, but also have compassion for yourself like other people. I did not have self-compassion. I would beat myself up all the time. So just some food for thought there.
Yeah, it's a great segue into kind of what we focus on, which is a performance mentality. And I think there's a lot of kind of misinformation out there about how to develop self-esteem. Self-esteem is really just a deep down inside feeling that you are good, that you are worthy. And I lack that myself as a result of a lot of narratives. I grew up with a damaged personal truth as a result of giving the pen to the story of my life to a lot of other people and reading what they wrote. But no one ever, until 2010, no one ever told me that I could take the pen back. And then once I did, how to use it. And you said, I think if you don't understand this, the two most powerful words in the English language are I am. And if you don't know who you are, you may just become someone else. I did, and I didn't really like who I became, but I don't think we teach people how to develop a self-concept, a self-image that they can be proud of. And really, self-confidence is derived from what, Colin? If you were to kind of give us the two kind of window views into the real things that drive self-confidence, what are they?
Yeah, one of the questions I ask people I'm doing workshops is, hey guys, what do you think the number one source of confidence comes from? And people say, I've done this before, I've had this success, or your practice and how you train and prepare. And it's like, well, have you had success before, then show up in the moment and fail? Yes. Have you trained, practiced, and you're prepared, but you get to that performance and the moment's too big, you don't believe in yourself, and you don't do well in that moment. So those are important, but I go back to research from the BBC lab in the UK, Dr. Andrew Lane, 44,000 patients. They found that the number one driver of confidence and performance is self-talk. How you speak to yourself.
How you speak to yourself.
And then I'll take out a whiteboard and I'll say the brain thinks in 4 dimensions. The first dimensions are the words that we say. These words create pictures in our mind. And these pictures create that third dimension, which is our emotional state. And this emotional state, your cells have memory. It creates your belief system. And then the two questions I challenge anybody I'm working with is that thought true? Said by who? So if we can start at the top of this thought cascade and change the words we say to ourselves, the words we say out loud, and Charlie, how much more powerful is our internal language?
So we know from science and we know from research, we covered this morning, that our internal influence is 10 times more powerful than external influences. So what I think about me is 10 times more powerful than what you think about me. The problem is that if I don't know how to talk to myself, then my mind, which has a heavy bias towards negativity, is going to lie to me, and it's going to share with me a lot of things about me that don't serve me. And so how we talk to ourselves, I love that you put that on the top of the list for developing self-confidence, because the math is, if what I think of me is 10 times more powerful than what you think about me, and I'm not talking to myself and you are, 0 times 10 is 0. That means I have no influence over myself whatsoever. And if you're saying anything about me that I'm listening to, 1 times 10 is 10. And so, but no one ever taught me how to talk to myself. I used to listen to myself a lot, but no one ever taught to me how to speak to myself. So, and people are like, you asking me to, is that you asking me to trick my mind? It's like, no, I'm not asking you to trick your mind. I'm asking you to use your mind. And so when you're coaching somebody or training somebody who's facing adversity, challenge, and change, and they're in that spot of, I work with a lot of people, by the way, that are stuck. I work with a lot of people that are coming from substance abuse backgrounds or struggling with addiction. And so we've got a shame-based disease, where we've engaged in unhealthy behaviors. A lot of them have trauma backgrounds. So 85% of people with substance abuse have suffered from childhood trauma. And so they've got a bit of a negative narrative based on the way they've been behaving. So getting them to shift now and start to see themselves differently, it's not a subtle shift, And so when you're working with people, what are the few things that people can start to do to change that narrative and to improve the way they talk to themselves?
Well, the first one is just to master what I call RSA, radical self-acceptance. Have self-love, self-compassion, flaws and all. I think when I stuttered, I didn't like myself because I thought, dude, what's wrong with me? People think, I'm this, I've had straight A's and I have friends, but like in these environments, I just would beat myself up. And one of the biggest shift I did prior to going to therapy, prior to going to speech therapy, then doing Toastmasters for 3 years, was I had to say, dude, I stutter sometimes. And that's okay. I'm okay with it. I mean, it's just part of what has happened. I can't change what has happened. So it's this acceptance, but it's like, I'm going to commit to move forward and just love myself regardless. So it's just look at yourself. And most people, they wake up in the morning and they focus on everything that they don't have, all their flaws. So if we can just, hey, I love myself. I don't have to be perfect. It's just not the way it is. But if I mess up, it's okay. The world's not going to end. So I think it's number one is just to, as much as that may sound woo-woo, like there's some healing properties of just like, I'm going to decide and practice loving myself for who I am.
Yeah,
So that to me would be the foundation.
Yeah.
So therapy and be around people who support you, love you, and to maybe write down some strengths, things about yourself. Because I think sometimes we look at TikTok, Instagram, and we start comparing, and we say, I don't have that. We get FOMO, all this stuff, which is exhausting. So let's just train our mind to have that self-compassion, self-love. And then I'm going to give you some prompts to develop, to front load your thinking, and to have a pre-thought game plan, to pre-plan your thoughts. And I say, it begins before it begins. You lost a moment for the moment you started because you had no plan to get into that moment to really help yourself win that moment. And your language is going to be a huge driver of that. And I'm just speaking of experience as a former college athlete, 2 sports. When I was at my best, I had championship self-talk.
Championship self-talk?
So I had it, but I didn't know what that was. I was unconsciously competent. I didn't have any systems on this. So what I would do them is listeners, you want to train confidence. I'm going to give you 3 things you're going to write down now. We're in the mind gym. In the mind gym, we don't just think it, we ink it. The 3 most powerful words are we can say or write it down. Because the pen is mightier than the brain. Because the pen can remember stuff. We're going to forget stuff. So the first thing I'd have you do is when you need a boost of confidence is I want you to write down 3 times when you were really successful, when you accomplished something you're super proud of. The brain keeps a scoreboard of all of our failures. It keeps a scoreboard of all of our losses. It doesn't keep a scoreboard of when we've had success before. That success is just as real as that failure. But most people, when they go into a new environment, they think of, okay, I messed up before, don't screw up. I screwed up here. Like we have this bias for negativity. And then we go back to brain science. Charlie, teach the listeners, what % of human thoughts are negative?
80%, 85%?
Yeah, so 4 out of 5. And the research shows we say about 6,000 thoughts to about 70,000 thoughts. So let's do the math. If we're saying 50,000 thoughts a day, that's 40,000 negative thoughts. So I can't guarantee you that being positive always works, Charlie, but we know that negativity always works for the negative. So let's just give ourselves another option. So when you've had success before, just remind yourself of those moments. And then to be credible with yourself, let's list some behaviors you're doing to earn the right to be confident with your habits and routines. So like Charlie, for example, you're about to do this podcast. Give me some times of when you've done a great podcast. You've had moments of success. Give me some examples of your training preparation. You've been working with me for 6 months. Dude, you can talk yourself into greatness or out of greatness.
Absolutely. And I think what you're getting, for people that are listening, it's you have eating habits. You have exercise habits. You have thought habits. You just don't know it. And I think, what I'm grateful for today is that, they say if you want to get up and go to the gym, lay your clothes out the night before. One of the things I do to focus on my prayer routine in the morning, people say, put your shoes under your bed, put your keys under your bed. So you start your day on your knees, before you can even go anywhere. It's like we have these little things. But what thought habits do you have? And, that mind is like a 2-year-old. I mean, it's going to whine, kick, and scream and focus on those negatives unless we give it something to think about. So thank you for encouraging our listeners to grab a piece of paper and to grab a pen and write down thoughts that serve you. And I love that you talk about, I think this is really important because there's the concept of toxic positivity, right? There's that kind of bullshitting ourselves, and what you're talking about is something I think is framed in authenticity, which is these are actual statements. You've had success. I think, one of the things you've always encouraged me to do, which I've translated into my coaching now, hunt the good things. What we focus on expands in our lives. Expectancy theory says you focus on good, you'll see more good. And so by writing down these 3 times that you've had success, and then these 3 behaviors that allow you to build self-confidence, and then continuing to build reps in the mind gym is so transformative.
And then we're going to add one more, and I teach having what's called anchor statements. Think about a ship in the port, in the water. If there's no anchor, the wind, the waves, we call this the drift. You're going to drift away from the moment. You're not going to be present. You're going to be drifted off at sea. Maybe you go down to this negative thought pattern. So if we have some language, remember we think in 4 dimensions, listeners: words, pictures, emotions, beliefs. Words are tools. Words are tools. The words we speak and think are the wardrobe of our beliefs. So we can improve our words. #TBT, thoughts become things. So these anchor statements is just write down these 3 I am statements that are going to shape your self-image. We know from author James Clear, the number one driver of behaviors is identity. So if we can decide, think about, I used to love as a kid, we'd get this East Bay magazine, East Bay, to order like shoes and gear and all this stuff for the different seasons. This was before Amazon. So that East Bay magazine was like legit. We're so far every month we get new East Bay. And you could pick in that magazine what shoes you want, what shorts you want to wear, what socks or what hat you want to get. So listeners, I would say, who do you want to be? Don't find yourself, create yourself. Pick words and actions that you want to be like. That when people say, who's Heather? Heather, what words do you want people to think about you? We just threw Heather into the podcast.
Always.
You won't be able to hear me.
It's okay. I can tell listeners. I've had one word. When people think of Heather, what do you want them to think of?
Kind.
Okay, love that. So Heather is going to say, I am kind. As her first pillar of this anchor. We become what we think about most of the time. So let's front load our thinking. Let's decide. Design beats willpower. And pick, I am this, I am this, I am this. And just have them pop up on your phone. Read them every day before you go into a performance. Because if you don't do this, you're going to be searching for confidence. Your brain's going to find ways to stop you. Your brain's going to find ways to keep you playing it safe. So we have to influence, we call this your internal advertising campaign. And that's just going to give you a better chance. Quality thought equals quality movement. Negative thought equals negative movement. I'm not going to guarantee this is going to help you. This is going to guarantee a win, but it's going to give you a better chance.
It is, and it's that concept of having, I think, what I've learned to call a performance mindset. And a performance mindset is actually something that identifies and focuses on the done wells. It gives credit where credit's due, and I think that's so important that we talk about that because we are so apt to focus on our failures, and this is a thought strategy. That everybody can use. And it's I like the concept of preloading. It's like I'm in charge of my thoughts. Well, if I'm in charge of them, what do I want them to be? And I can tell you that when asked that question, when people think of me, what do I want them to think of? That Heather popped up kind. I mean, most people that I speak with haven't thought about who they are or who they want to be. They think about what they want, how many likes they want, how many followers they want, what house they want to live in, when. My friend Mike Diamond calls it destination disease. When I get there, then I'll be happy. And we chase that to the point of always needing instead of always having. And we always can have. And when I say have, I don't mean all of those things. I mean, you can have the very best of peace of mind, of happiness, of serenity, of peace, of contentment, of fulfillment, based on healthy self-image and then a bunch of healthy self-behaviors. Because those dials, I mean, how do those dials work? I mean, if I've got a really high self-confidence, but I'm engaged in a bunch of unhealthy behaviors, is that sustainable?
It's not. So when we break down the word mindset, Charlie, we know what it is. Mindset, listeners, is a conditioned set of beliefs that drive behaviors. So mindset is these two dials that you're talking about, Charlie, is beliefs and behaviors. So it's just kind of follow this. So if you have great beliefs, as in I believe in myself, I'm the best, I'm awesome, but you have crappy behaviors where you're not getting the right hydration, the right sleep, you're not doing your training, you're not ready to go, you haven't done the work to execute in the moment, you're going to fail. But if you have awesome behaviors and good habits, like physically, but you don't believe in yourself, you have imposter syndrome, or you are just going to sabotage. We call this, what's your self-image comfort zone? What limits you put on yourself? You're going to fail as well. So we have to work on both of these dials. So we have to identify a good thoughtmosphere. How's your thought life? Let's clean that up. Let's work on through therapy or coaching or journaling, mindfulness, prayer, to meditate, but to recondition wire your internal language, what you think, what you verbalize. And then we need to look at success leaves clues. Who has what you want? Who's successful? What behaviors have led them there? But also self-scout. One of my first drills we do for self-awareness is, when were you thriving? What behaviors were you doing in that moment? Most people don't know when they're successful. So let's design a thought plan, but let's design a behavior plan.
Wow. That is so powerful. And I think it speaks to, kind of how you can keep your foot on the gas pedal. We've got a gas pedal, and it's our minds. And, the fuel for that mind are our thoughts, and we can control them. And I think one of the things that, as we talk about overcoming adversity, challenge, and change, there's no avoiding adversity in our lives. It's coming. There's no avoiding challenges. There's no avoiding change, whether it be a change in job, change in circumstance, change in relationships. I think one of the things that mindfulness and mental conditioning has really helped me with, and I think a lot of my negative bias before actually held me back, was having an adversity strategy. Not thinking it's not going to come, but how to have a strategy in place that when I feel, those negative emotions, worry, doubt, insecurity, they creep in, I've got a adversity strategy, and how is as you've had these setbacks in your own life, and then you've gotten into this space, what are the pillars of kind of adversity training, adversity management that you've created, and that can help people as they face setbacks in their lives, as they're trying to overcome?
Well, it's very interesting in business, sales, sport. Most people they have a plan for success, but most people don't have a plan when they get hit in the face, or there's, like you mentioned, adversity, challenge, change. Or I would say also it's very challenging is having success. How you respond to when you do well. Some people start to get a big ego, and they start treating people not the right way, or they stop doing the behaviors that led them to that place because they think I'm here now, so they start coasting, they go backwards, So really how I define mental toughness is an equation: E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. And 100% of outcomes are only 10% events. They're 90% how we choose to respond. So as your mental performance coach, I'm going to sit and we're going to get in the lab in the mind gym and come up, hey, when things aren't going your way, how do you normally handle it? When the umpire makes a bad call, when your manager does something to you, or when you have a back order with your product, or your customer says something that knocks you off track, have you thought about what you can do, or you just hope that you're going to handle it the right way? Most people don't have a reset plan. So there's 3 things we can do to develop your I like things in threes, Charlie.
Yes, you do.
Okay, I like things in threes, Heather. Just let's keep the things really simple. So the first thing we need to do is just notice when your internal critic pops up, your internal Judge Judy. These negative, we call it ants, automatic negative thoughts, are going to come in. Just notice, and then say, okay, when I notice these things, or when you notice an internal state change. So I really teach 3 levels: blue, green, red. Blue is you have low energy. You're not engaged. You're not motivated. You're not excited. Green is like sweet spot. I'm in the rhythm. It's go time, flow. Red is kind of like too much energy or too much heart rate, sweat out of every orifice in your body, super nervous. So when we know we're not in that green, we have to have a reset strategy to get back to green. So the first thing we can do, Charlie, listeners, is to come up with a reset word, a reset phrase. I notice this internal critic is just firing. You're not worthy of this. You're not good enough. You failed before. No! This is a great question from Dr. Susan David. She says, who's in charge, the thinker or the thought? I believe that the thinker is in charge.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm in control of me. We have the power of free will. So I'm going to just use words as tools and stop that negative thought pattern with a word. My reset phrase is, I'm not defined by this. When I notice that word, fear, adversity, and something doesn't go right, I'm not going to define myself by this moment. Is this real pressure or is this fake pressure? Oftentimes, I'm creating this fake pressure in my mind. The next thing we can do is have a physical reset routine. Want to change your emotion? Use motion. Have a physical routine, whether it's get up out of your seat, take a slow deep breath, take your watch on and off to reset. The great Mamba, we're down in California area, your Kobe, he would untie his shoes in time to lock back in. It took like 5 seconds. As a physical reminder, that last play. Look at baseball pitchers, they swipe the rubber. The rubber is not dirty. They're swiping off the last play, locking back in to the next play. And then the third thing is have a focal point, a visual cue that reminds you and shifts perspective. So it's a picture of your family. Maybe it's the American flag. Like, there's people fighting in wars. I'm worrying about this sales call? Seriously? This is not real pressure. So 3 things we can do to reset: lingual, physical, and visual. And we practice these. We practice being in these environments where there's some stakes on the line. I think the biggest issue with, elevating your tolerance of adversity is we don't practice in adverse conditions. So make it challenging. If we're in sales or in sport, make practice by yourself harder than practice with your teammates. Make practice with teammates harder than the game or that sales presentation. So those are 3 things.
Wow. I mean, if you take anything out of listening to this, and you're going to face adversity, if you can tap that reset button, reset thought, reset action, reset place. It's like I liken it to having guardrails. You know when you were little and you were learning how to bowl and you put the guardrails up. It's like, the ball can only stay in the lane and it's going to hit the pins if you keep the guardrails up. And your reset thought, your reset action, your reset place keep you in the lane, keep you headed down the path of life. That's why I think principles, the principles that we live by are like muscles. And if you don't work them out, they won't be strong enough to face adversity, challenge, and change. I always caution people that if you don't have these guiding principles in your life, these guiding thoughts, these guiding actions to reset and keep you grounded, which I think is really, in a way, what you're describing keeps us grounded, right? It keeps us in this present moment and not escaping into unhealthy behaviors to cope with the things that are happening in our lives.
But I think we have to have this also truth about greatness. This is a fundamental law of success. Adversity is life's golden ticket to take us to a place we could have never gone if we choose to use it the right way. Sailors don't want smooth seas to get their skills improved. Like, we have to have this relationship with adversity and saying, good, I like it, bring it, I can't get better. And I as a father of 5 kids, we have 1 son, 4 daughters, I want them to have adversity. I want them to be challenged. And I can't wait to see how they respond. Like my son Baylor in baseball, people are like, man, do you love it? Like when he gets hits and stuff. No, actually, I love it when he fails. And then I want to see how he responds. I'd rather him go 4 at-bats, 3 strikeouts, his last at-bat, he gets a base hit instead of 4 for 4.
That's right. I mean, we learn. That's a growth.
Yes.
I mean, that's where the learning takes place if we stay in the moment. So for me, this is a big focus for me, right? Because in the bowling lane of life, when I didn't have a grounded set of principles to deal with adversity and learn from it, I saw it always as a threat. And for me, I wanted to avoid a threat. I turned to drugs and alcohol. People turn to shopping. They turn to the internet. They turn to porn. There's lots of things we can turn to get off the lane of life if we want to avoid it, if we don't have a healthy adversity tolerance, which is seeing it, as you just said, it really is reframing. It's like when you talk about the people that are first responders, they go towards the gunfire, they go towards the fire, they go toward the threat, they go towards the situation, because that's what they've been trained to do. And if we can stay on the, keep the guardrails up, not go into the gutter of life, by knowing that we're going to learn something from this, if we have the skills that we need to get through.
Yes. Well, I think shout out to Miss Carol Dweck, Stanford, amazing thought leader. This growth mindset principle, we can't share it enough. Is you have a fixed mindset, growth mindset. Fixed mindset says talent, skill is fixed. I am who I am. You avoid challenges because you get your self-worth tied to outcome. When other people have success, you feel threatened by it. Where a growth mindset says it's all about effort, not outcomes. You want feedback. You want to be challenged. And you're getting validation in growth and effort. And so I think so many people are afraid to fail. But when failure is beautiful.
Why do you think that is? Why are people afraid to fail? I was afraid to fail.
Look,
and
I am too. I have a PhD in perfectionism, in self-worth tied to outcomes, and being crippled about really living my life from the outside in, like, what do people think about me, instead of like, what do I think about myself? I just think, but the best entrepreneurs, the best business people, leaders, they fail all the time. But it's their relationship, it's their perspective of it. Like, I'm about to find this is growth, this is awesome, I'm learning. So I think when we're faced with adversity, don't get mad, get curious. Get curious to learn, adapt, and then get creative. And then through that creativity, you can make a better version, or you can find more solutions to serve yourself, but to serve others. So I think, so why do people are afraid of failure? They're so wrapped around ego and self. Right?
Yeah, I just, and I love keeping the memory of Kobe Bryant alive. And Kobe Bryant, as much as he's known for his prowess on the basketball court, as much as he's known for his championships, as much as he's known for his commitment to excellence, what everybody talks about today is the Mamba mentality. That Kobe Bryant had a mindset around the way that he thought that people wanted to understand more than anything about Kobe Bryant. And, I heard him recently talk about his relationship with losing, and it was really interesting to hear him say, in essence, I loved it, because there was always a lesson for me. And he went through that kind of well, better, how, what can I learn? That it was telling me something, whether it was making air balls and knew when he had to work on his legs, when he first came into the league, and that his high school legs weren't going to get him through a pro game. And, that he always looked at what he did well, what he needed to do better, and how he was going to do it. And every opportunity he had, he kind of treated winning, as you talked about earlier, how do we deal with success? He treated success and failure with the same skills. What did I do well to succeed? What do I want to do better, and how am I going to do it? And what did I do well? What did I do well in this game? What do I need to do better, and how am I going to do it? And that was his mentality around failure, and he always learned from it. I think that's a great lesson.
And one thing I like to teach anybody I'm working with is flow. Flow means being in the zone. Flow is a term coined by Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And what he found, there's pillars of flow, being in the zone. So present. You want to go through them, Charlie?
I just want to hear you pronounce his name again, because I've read it so many times and I'm so afraid to try and pronounce it. You nailed it.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah. So let's go through them.
So flow again in the zone. So listeners, think of the last time you were in the state. Completely present. No judgment, not judging good or bad. There's no sense of time. You have a sense of challenge. You have a clear goal. You're getting feedback. But this is the key element of being in this flow state. The activity is the reward, not the outcome. I'll say it again. The activity, whether it's knitting, whether it's playing esports, whether it's surfing, whether it's doing a podcast with a dear friend, there's no time. And I don't care how many listeners we get. I don't care, what happens from this podcast. Dude, we're right here. Heather is on the squad, on the ones and twos over here, So flow is, dude, I don't care about the outcome. I love this, man. Like, you think I count hours, bro? You got to clock in and clock out? Hell no. I'm in flow because I'm obsessed. I love it. I do it for free. So there's no outcome. So if you're doing it for outcome, you're going to be chasing happiness. So I don't like the phrase, the pursuit of happiness. I like the phrase, the pursuit is happiness. And that's what Kobe's describing. Kobe freaking loved basketball. If he lost every season or won, it wouldn't. I mean, he wants to win championships. He's a ferocious competitor. But as he got older, he has so much wisdom that everything's a lesson. And don't waste a mistake. Don't waste a mistake. There's gold there, but don't waste success either. I think a lot of people, they only, the phrasing, I never lose, I either win or I learn, that's partly true. But we should be learning when we're winning too.
That's right. There's nuggets in, and I think, we have that little framework we use, and you alluded to it earlier, but that's conscious competency. It's like, do you take time to know why you're good? And I think it's amazing, because one of the things I think, people need to understand is you went from learning to speak, I think, stuttering has gotten that label, and we don't call people fallers when they're learning to walk. We say they're learning to walk, and unfortunately we've gotten into a society where we label a lot of people, instead of saying he's learning how to talk. Well, you were learning how to talk, and now you're a national public speaker. You're an ambassador for Fortune 500 companies. You train Salesforce, you train Lululemon, and so you've turned your quote unquote mess or your struggle into a strength by reframing it. And I think you're not unique. You don't have superhuman DNA. These are skills that we can teach to everybody. That what's happened doesn't define you. It's what are you going to do about it?
And I agree. And I love this phrasing: make your mess your message, make your mess your mission. So one of my powers is, I have so much empathy for people, because I know what it feels like to have anxiety. I know what it feels like to be so anxious before a simple meeting on a virtual platform. I had to take a Xanax, and I actually acted like I didn't have coverage. I text my manager, I don't have this connection doesn't working, because I was so afraid just to speak to my peers. There's like 8 of us. I just had to panic. I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful for that experience, because it gives me a foundation of empathy and understanding and curiosity. But my pain is my power. I'm using that pain. So who had told me this? This was from Tom Bilyeu. He says, nature has given us 2 drivers, pleasure and pain. Most of us only use one of those. If you can reframe that pain to your power of having empathy, service, love, curiosity, motivation, drive, connection, support. And as a public speaker, if I'm on stage in front of 1,000 people, if I go out there, I set national sales records. I went to Tahiti, greets all these, because I'm the best sales professional. Be like, screw you, bro. But if I say, God, guys, and there was a time in my life where I couldn't say my own name. There's a time in my life I couldn't answer the phone. There's a time in my life where I couldn't order food going through a drive-through. There's a time where I was working at a company, and I got, here's the products you're going to sell, and one of the products was for overactive bladder. It's called Vesicare. I'm driving in my car after getting this new drug, and I couldn't say the word Vesicare, looking at myself in the rearview. I couldn't even say the word to myself. I drove home to my room. I cried for like 2 hours. I know what that feels like.
Yeah. What's
gonna connect you more to me, telling you how awesome I am or how I've struggled? So if you can make your message and have that self-awareness, but I told you this yesterday in your car after golf. Dude, great round at Sherwood. What's up, Chris, Ryan? We had a great time yesterday. But what I told you in the car is this, and listeners, I want you to pay close attention to this. The most powerful person in the room has nothing to prove. The most dangerous person in the room has nothing to prove, because they're willing to be patient. They're willing to listen. They don't have to, fake it till they make it. They have that inner belief, confidence, poise, and that they trust themselves. They love themselves. So once you can make that shift, man, it's really not about you. I think the biggest lie, you'd ask me why people are so afraid to fail, is they think that everyone's looking at them, judging them. That's so not true. The most people are judging how they look, not how you look, bro. Simple example, if I'm working with a baseball team, that hitter is thinking everyone's looking at them. The pitcher is thinking everyone's looking at them. The umpire is thinking everyone's looking at me calling balls and strikes. The coach thinks everyone's judging how I'm managing the game. Yeah. So it's like everyone thinks thinking about them, but it's not true. You're one of 18 guys on the field. At the umpires, you're one of like 21. So like this is not about you. So if we can just walk away, like we over amplify ourselves. Here's a simple example. Listeners, when you look at a group picture of you on Instagram or a group picture, because nobody prints pictures anymore, you probably the first thing you do is you look at yourself first, see how you look. You're not looking at anybody else. Everyone's doing that. So if you know that, you have a leg up on everyone.
That's so awesome. That's so true. That always goes to you. The Instagram swipe. You know, it's checking your image out. That's amazing.
If you can just say who thinks, what makes you think that you're so important? Everyone's like obsessing over you. No one goes to bed thinking about your mistake. No one. We're thinking about how they looked. Heather, is that true? Would you agree with that one? 100%. Yeah.
And there's a real freedom in that. You know, I think you said the power is in the person who doesn't have anything to prove. I mean, that's where the power. I mean, but it's perception, right? I mean, you're either thinking everybody's focused on you, or you're thinking everybody's focused on what they can learn from you, what they can see in you. You know, George Mumford told me, this was probably one of the first times I probably sat down and had a conversation with George after I met him, and he said, "Man, I just need you to be you." Wow.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, but it's hard. You know,
hard.
If we don't know who we are.
RSA, baby. Radical self-acceptance. Flaws and all.
Yeah.
Like, bring your flaws to me. I want to see them. That's the good stuff. That's what makes you different. But I would say with George, what a great mentor, what a great friend. I mean, just an amazing human being. But I think the foundation of mental health, mental well-being, peak performance, abundance, being a great spouse, partner, friend, colleague, is the foundation is gratitude and service.
Yeah. And gratitude, lots of people talk about gratitude, but you know, you and I know the science behind gratitude is an abundance mindset, right? It gets us to focus on who we are, not who we're not. It gets us to focus on what we have, not what we don't have. And that, what does that do when you, and I know you have a really embedded gratitude routine. I know it's not trivial, and it's not just you don't take it lightly. And how did you develop that? And can you share how your gratitude routine has shaped your life as a father, as a coach, as a friend?
Well, again, I started getting these books, right, on the power of the mind, the power of well-being, the power of all these things, and I just saw like these patterns, and like everyone's talking about gratitude. I was like, there must be something here. So what if I start practicing that? And then I read even more research. There's some research out of Cal Davis. You know, gratitude lowers cortisol by nearly 30%. It boosts your immune system. Research out of Penn, it lowers depression and anxiety. Research out of Duke, it shows people who are grateful and optimistic are more successful, make more money, are more resilient. They win more in business and sports. So I was like, I want all that. We actually can live longer with this positive, this gratitude practice. So okay, I gotta start doing this. But I like systems. This is from author James Clear. We don't rise to our goals, we fall to our systems. So having a system of gratitude. So the first one I did is I wrote a journal called the Rise Journal. And it's this Goals V acronym. Goals V. So wake up with a goal, a vision, a purpose, and intent. But then how we get there is process over outcome. So G is we start our day with gratitude. We do this gratitude checklist before we do anything. And I like to say, lower your threshold for gratitude and just do an inventory. But don't just think it, feel it. You know, it could be person, place, thing, or experience, something you are excited about to look forward to. I think some people just do the exercise, but they don't really feel it. Remember,
yeah, it's an important element.
So our body produces 5 million cells per day. Your cells have memory. They are listening. We can think ourselves into sickness. We can think ourselves into pain. So if foundationally, if gratitude is a magnet for miracles, gratitude changes your mood. It changes your frequency. You can't give what you don't have. You can't be anger, bitter, hateful, and grateful at the same time. So this Goals V system I started developing, it was G is gratitude. O is what's my objective for the day. A is affirmations. L is learn, growth mindset. S is service. V is to visualize my goals as if they're already done. And then when I train people, I was like, you probably won't do 6 things. So we can maybe do 3. So I developed what's called the HA method. So we're going to breathe for a minute. Then H is gratitude. I have. Think of what you have. Like, again, listeners, honest question. When you wake up in the morning, first thing you do look at your phone and compare yourself and look in the mirror. I don't have this, don't have that. Well, that's really not a productive pattern.
No gadgets before God.
That's a good one. And then I am is just affirming. I guess that's another form of gratitude. Is just affirming who you are, not who you aren't. So I'm an amazing father. I love my wife. I'm trained for this. I'm worthy of this. I'm going to trust. I can't wait to crush it today with Charlie on this podcast. And then I will is gratitude for the future that hasn't even happened yet. So you identify your intention, what you want, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. And it's not that you just don't have it yet. You have it. You have it. It's yours. Your spirit doesn't age. Your flesh does. It's yours. You just don't have it yet. So we visualize and imagine and use all of our senses. This is called imagery. This fact that everything happens twice, first in our mind, then in real life. The brain can't tell the difference between a real imagined event. So that's gratitude for what you have, who you are, and what you're going to get in the future, as if it's already yours. Now imagine how your life would be if you did that every single day.
I do it every single day. It's our gratitude affirmation. It's our Gaia. It's our it's how I start my day. And I think if you're struggling with the feeling of gratitude, I've worked out this kind of little bit of a kind of mindset strategy to imagine not having what I'm grateful for, and it totally changes the way I feel about having it. When I think about I'm grateful for my kids, do I really feel grateful for my kids? Do I really feel grateful for that I've raised two amazing children, that God's given me? Imagine not having them. Wow. It takes my gratitude up, and then I can feel it. So thank you for talking about how important registering that feeling of gratitude.
But I think we need to, it's again, systems.
Yeah.
So this is called habit stacking. Pick a habit you already do and attach a new habit you want to it. So I do a quick ha method in the morning, first thing before
but that's not it.
What's that?
But that's not it.
Well, just watch this. Before my feet even touch the ground, I go through the ha just to prime the mind. And then I'll do an exercise after I work out physically. I'll write down the ha method, and then I'll really spend some time with mindfulness and visualize breathing and then feel those things. But in my household, we try at least once a day to play what's called happy breakfast, happy lunch, or happy dinner. Imagine 7 of us. We have 5 kids, 9, 7, 5, 3, and 2. I'm trying to teach these things to our kids early. So we play happy breakfast, happy dinner, whatever it is, lunch. And every kid says one thing that makes them happy. And then we count to 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we pound the table. Happy, And then I challenge myself, not every day, but maybe probably 5 times a week, to do a happy or gratitude or abundance walk.
Right.
Where I go outside and using mindfulness tactics, senses, experience, and just walk and just feel and just notice, think, prayer of love and abundance. And when I'm great, just giving thanks, just noticing, giving thanks and thinking about these things. So, but we have to have systems in place. So we talk about how do you get your body conditioned? Hey, we're going to pick, pecs, glutes, shoulders, back, and we do lifts. Well, for our emotional fitness, for our mental fitness, let's pick some key mental muscle groups and train them with drills. Part of our work this morning was, Charlie, here's the concepts you're going to teach. Well, what drills can we do to foster and strengthen those skills?
Yeah, it's so, and again, it's where the good stuff lies. It's like working out a muscle, and like these guardrails of life. If you don't work, if I should speak for myself, I spent a lot of time not even knowing these mental, emotional muscles existed, let alone how to train them to serve me. And I spent a lot of time literally in the gutter of life, because if my values, if my principles, if my mental conditioning, the things that I want to feel, think, and do aren't strong, then in the face of adversity, challenge, and change, trust me when I tell you this, your most active response could be your weakest attribute. Because that's the one I was strengthening. I was strengthening my avoidance muscle. I wanted to be courageous, but I was strengthening my avoidance muscle, and I was using drugs and alcohol to numb the pain of a life I didn't want. And so when adversity, challenge, and change came, my strongest response was my weakest attribute. I went to avoidance because it's the only muscle I had worked out. Today, my strongest attribute is courage, honesty, integrity. And let me tell you, in the face of adversity, challenge, and change, this person sitting in front of you and this person sitting across from me have a strategy, have a system to deal with adversity, challenge, and change that does not require drugs, alcohol, or avoidance. It requires honesty, integrity, servant leadership. Those are strong.
Oh, 100%.
And those keep me out of the gutters.
Well, and then let's just bring this home, baby. Let's
Yes,
bring this
sir.
home. Service, man.
Service.
It's not about you. So brain science tells us when you serve and help people, your brain produces dopamine and serotonin. But maybe the mother of all happy chemicals is oxytocin. Harvard did research dating back to the 1930s. It's still going on. The longest research study on happiness, and they found the number one source of happiness is not car, income, baller house. It's relationships. And the best way to improve relationships is to have this servant mindset. How can I help? I teach our kids, seek to serve, don't swerve.
Hendersons are helpers.
And we have a family motto. That's Henderson's help.
That's it.
I'm like, yo, kids, what do Hendersons do? Help, And I asked them one question at the end of the day, who'd you help today? So, but part of that is being around a community, being around a tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. You're a byproduct of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So why don't you be the person that you want to be around, being kind, empathetic, listening. We don't have to have the answers or the other solutions. Just be there, be available, just that presence. But it's so fun to see what happens to you in life when you start hanging out with the right people and you start noticing their habits, their traits. And peer pressure goes both ways.
That's right.
Peer pressure goes both ways. It can go negative or positive. So, and I would say maybe the most life-changing thing you can do, listeners, right now, if you have some goals, aspirations to get better, and this maybe sound kind of hardcore, but there are 3 types of people that are in our life: a negative or a minus, a 0, and a plus. So a minus they are taking energy. They're lazy, they're negative, they're a victim, they're bad-mouthing everything, they're maybe noticing, they only talk about or maybe you're having success and they talk crap about it because they want to pull you down. Or there's like a 0, which is really not above or below. They're not giving or taking, which those are fine. But these pluses are one that they're elevating you. Are you an energy taker or an energy maker? Attitudes are contagious. Are you a fountain or a drain? Are you a vitamin or a virus? So let's get around some people that are going to elevate us. A rising tide lifts all ships. And let's just make kindness normal. Let's make optimism normal. Let's make resilience normal. Let's make empathy normal. Let's make big, crazy freaking goals normal. Let's make serving people normal. Let's make creativity normal. Well, it's hard to do those things if you're around a bunch of negative people.
It is.
So let's get yourself around, get a mentor, get a coach, be a part of a small group, and your life's going to change. This is a law of success.
Well, what a great place to, as you said, bring this home, because, I'll personally just thank you for being in my circle, for being one of my engines, that are driving me and all the people that you help. And, important people can find you. I know people are going to want to continue to find you. Can you just give us a little, and we'll tag it and make sure we note it in the show notes. But how do people find you? How can they follow you? The Collin Henderson?
That's it, Charlie. TheCollinHenderson.com or Collin Henderson on Instagram is probably the best place. Or on Twitter, let's see, C_Hen83.
And your podcast, which I love to listen to, is a great content. You've kept some incredible thought leaders, rapping with you, and so
Master Your Mindset
podcast is great. And look for us. This is my guy. We're doing he's helping me, build out a lot of great platforms to help other people. And, just awesome to have you down. What a great, 24 hours it's been. And thanks for being in my life, man.
Dude, you're a stud.
Yeah, I love you.
I love you too, buddy. So we're going to end this show with this. The body has limits, but the mind is limitless. Be kind to others, but be kind to yourself.
We are out.
Bye.